The following clip is from my sit down with a very knowledgeable diehard Leafs fan. We talk everything Habs and Leafs, including all the recent transactions for both teams, and we butt heads on a few different topics, including who now has the better team, how a playoff series would play out, and who has the better general manager. This video is sponsored by High Button Sports, and if you want to see the full sit down, check for the link down in the description. Drouin has scored up to 20, and now that Drouin, I know you are not a big fan of Drouin, but
I wouldn't say I'm a big fan. I mean, we are from Halifax.
I won't take that away from you. But he definitely has not impressed his first few seasons in Montreal. He's had glimpses of it where he's looked really good, but there's some consistency issues. But I would argue to you, and I'll bring up a point about the Halifax Mooseheads actually, that since he's been in Montreal, the best center he has played with is Max Domi, who we've both just agreed is likely not a center. Now he has Suzuki, who he looked really good with in the return to play, really good with, and he actually led the team in points in the return to play with Suzuki. But the big thing is he'll be with Josh Anderson now, who's a 25 goal scorer as long as he gets healthy again. Maybe he's entering his prime. He could be more. Now, the point about the Mooseheads is when Drouin was playing at Halifax, he played with a very smart center who had a elite offense, Nate McKinnon. But he also played with a overage power forward in Stephen Fournier, who cleared the space for both McKinnon and Drouin. That's another piece Drouin hasn't had since he's been with the Habs, a power forward, which now he has. So I'm curious if Drouin can really show what he's made of. He's not a guy that's going to lift up a line and carry a line, but if he has those pieces with him, he could maybe explode and be the player he was meant to be.
Here's my thing. And I mean, you've probably heard me say it. I know your brother's heard me say it tons of times. I know a lot of people that watch hockey have heard me say it. I never thought from watching Jonathan Drouin with the Mooseheads, I mean, we went to a lot of games those 2 years. I didn't think Jonathan Drouin would be the player that a lot of people thought he was going to be. I don't think the way he plays the game necessarily translates to NHL. Hold on to the puck, making that extra move, dipsy doing all that stuff. That's my biggest thing. So when you say he hasn't played with like many top centers in the NHL, that's fair, of course. There's a lot of wingers that were drafted that high up there that don't have that centerman when they first come to the league either, but still can produce and show you glimpses of things. I'm not saying Jonathan Drouin's not a good hockey player, by no means. I just don't know if Jonathan Drouin's that guy you can guarantee the pencil line for 25 goals or 20 goals. I don't know if it's between the ears, if his hockey IQ isn't, the higher, so what it may be. Because the kid can fly. His shot is great. He has all the skills. So for not to translate on the ice right now in the NHL is kind of... But I wasn't sold on him in junior.
Could it be the line mates, right?
I don't know, because you can also make the argument, was the line mates in junior that made him... Because the following year, he has Nick Ehlers on the team, Timo Meier's on the team.
Another power forward, though, right?
But where did they go?
Yeah.
They didn't win.
Yeah.
And he was their best player.
Yeah.
And they lost to semifinals, Valdor, I believe, Anthony Mantha. So I think he's probably ideally a second line winger. And some years maybe he gets the 25 goal mark when he gets a career year or something. But I just wouldn't pencil him as a bona fide number one on the top line.
Like a potentially elite level player.
Yeah. And
which is what we were kind of hoping we got.
Yeah, and that... I mean,
I can definitely see where you're coming from.
And I think that goes for a lot of Montreal's wingers. I think that's one thing that might, and once they address that, then I think they could be a real factor.
Yeah.
Is you say the wingers, listen, a lot of those wingers can score 20 goals. Would you be surprised if half of them didn't score 20 goals? You know what I mean? Like, would you be surprised if Josh Harrison comes back next year and only pops in maybe 17, 18 the year off injury? I think Tatar's going to be good because he's playing for a contract. Would you be totally surprised if Drouin came back and struggled? Like, you know what I mean? Would those things totally surprise you? Like, to me, not necessarily. Like, Gallagher is Gallagher. You don't have to worry about Gallagher. Yeah. You don't have to worry about Deneau. Deneau's going to give you what he's going to give you. It's just a top two centerman, or no, I shouldn't say top two, but Kotkaniemi and Suzuki. I don't think you can guarantee bank on how they perform in the playoffs. You know what I mean? I think the playoff whole thing is...
I think you can for extended periods of time in the season, and maybe the whole season, but definitely not like coming into the season expecting a full...
Well, and that's exactly right.
Consistent...
Exactly. Yeah. And like you said, they beat I mean, hey, you can't take it away from the beat Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh did not outplay the hell out of Montreal. It wasn't like Carey Price stole that series.
No, he
like
didn't.
Future, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there is you. Of course, the Habs fan, your expectations are high, but I just wouldn't totally be surprised if some guys did underachieve.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the only thing with the Habs. I just don't think they have that top 4, top 6 forward that like a Phil Kessel's a terrible example because I mean, but a guy like a Phil Kessel just score.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A guy like he doesn't have to like Bozak and Van Reem like back in the day still pop 30-something goals.
Yeah.
Something like that. I know they're hard to
No,
get.
I totally agree with you there. That is one of the like the way I look at the Montreal's roster right now, we don't really have any glaring weaknesses anymore.
That's a good point.
However, there are some pieces where you'd want upgrades in those slots.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. My big thing with the Habs though is that depth, and I see what you're saying where would you be surprised if some guys don't get to their previous marks? Honestly, there aren't many that I wouldn't be surprised because there's consistency shown with these guys. We've already gone through the first line, Danault, Tatar, and Gallagher. We know what we're going to get from them.
Yeah, those three you know what you're going to get.
Now, with Josh Anderson, there's the injury concerns.
Yeah.
So that is a concern. But if it doesn't happen to be a concern, which they're saying it isn't, and they would say that, but he has shown consistency as a 25 goal scorer.
Now, I will say this.
17 in his first season.
The 17.
On pace for 25 in his
Josh
second.
Anderson historically is not a goal scorer. Like even in junior, I think the highest mark hit in junior was 27, which don't get me wrong, that's a lot of goals. But you know what I mean?
But he is one in the NHL. And he hasn't he hasn't played significantly with significantly crazy good players.
I think it was Boone Jenner and Dubinsky.
Yeah.
It's the majority.
Yeah, and he's still potting that number of goals. The big thing is his speed, and he does have a really good shot.
Yeah.
But, 17 in his first season, 19 in his second, but it was in a lot less games. He was on pace for 25. Then he had the 27-goal season.
Yeah.
So there's improvement each year, not just consistency. So that's just one example where there's consistency. Then you look at Tyler Toffoli. Throughout his entire NHL career, outside of like one season with LA, he's been around that 20 to 25 mark.
I will say this though, that one season without them, like I mean, last year goes and plays with Horvat, and then previously he was part of what was it, the '80s line they called in LA, Pearson, Toffoli, and Jeff Carter.
Yeah,
so he's not going to get offensively what those two do when he gets to Montreal right away as his centerman. So that's another thing where
depends on who he would be paired with, right?
I mean, if you pair with all three,
and how those centers, play throughout the season.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm. Yeah, so I don't think me and you sitting here thinking Suzuki and Kotkaniemi are gonna, go out there next year. And what would you captain? What would you have?
Suzuki. I feel like Suzuki is definitely going to have the more points.
I would agree with
that
100%.
I think I don't want to like overhype him too much and expect way too much out of him.
Don't jinx it.
So yeah, definitely 50-60 I think is fair. Maybe I'd go 60 as an optimist.
So that's my point. If you have 60 as his highest,
how many goals is Toffoli getting?
You know what I mean? Just something like that.
Okay. If you like this content, make sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the bell for notifications, and you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook @Scotian Canadian. Cheers, guys.